Well, hello there, everybody. I've put it off long enough. I can't run and hide from it any longer. This is the start of my answering questions video. Now, about 3 days ago, when I said that the answers to the questions were coming soon, I actually did shoot all the answers to the questions that night, and I discovered that Apple Computer's photo booth, this is recorded using the built-in camera on my MacBook, is not exactly what I would call robust software. It screwed up a number of the clips, all the way from causing the machine to hit its paging file so hard that it couldn't write video fast enough to disk, to not recording audio and throwing audio buffer overrun messages into the system log, all kinds of fun stuff. So here I am trying again. I'm going to take a slightly different tactic this time. First of all, there were a lot of common questions, and those are the ones I'm going to answer first. And easily the most common question I was asked is, where do I live? Well, the only thing I'm going to say about that is I live in Illinois. Now, it's possible to figure out things like my hometown and stuff like that if you look around on the internet. But the simple fact of the matter is, I don't want visitors. It's nothing personal, nothing against anybody on YouTube. It's just that I keep some really weird hours, and I'm not really looking to have people here. You know, this is not an amusement park. This is my home. And so I'd ask that you please respect that and not look me up and try to come to my house or anything like that. Thank you. Now, the people who asked that question were Theater40, Eli's Vlog, Case Live, Gusher B94, The Kohler 22, Osprey's 4 Life 08, and CWM 880. Another question that was fairly popular is the number of computers that I have. And to be perfectly honest, I don't have any idea. There's a lot of machines in active use. There's a lot of machines in storage. There's a couple loaners that I loan out to people when I'm working on their computer and they need one in the meantime. There's a lot of computers around here and a lot of projects, and I've never tried to count them all, and I don't really intend to. My education, the real Jim Guy and 727 Jeff N., the man with the amazing collection of vinyl records, both wrote in and asked basically the same question, what is my level of education? Well, without going into terrible detail, my furthest level of education completed is a high school education. I graduated from high school. The simple fact of the matter is, I struggled mightily to get through school. I pretty much hated school. Between 4th, 5th, 6th grade and junior high, that'd be 7th and 8th grade in my case, those were some of my darkest years. 1st through 3rd grade were pretty good, and high school was really good. That was the first time that I was ever on the honor roll in my entire life. I have taken a couple of odd classes at community colleges and things like that, but never anything credit or degree seeking, and I don't really want to. So that's the story on my education. Now, as far as my job goes, YouTube users PewterGeek, or PewterGK, which I'd assume to mean geek, and WobblyMan2000 both ask what my job is. Well, I work in IT on a professional level. I also do freelance computer consulting for people in the immediate vicinity of my location. I've done both of those things for many years now. If I had my choice, I would definitely prefer to do the freelance consulting because people are genuinely appreciative when you return their malware-ridden computer back to them and it's not messed up anymore. Whereas, as opposed to the job, it's a job. You have to do it, and sometimes people aren't in a really good mood. As far as the Roach Palace goes, got a lot of questions on the Roach Palace. For sure, YouTube users Travelin' Cub 321 and SI Telemark both asked about the Roach Palace, and maybe some other people did as well. The Roach Palace belonged to an elderly gentleman who one day, personally, I think he had a stroke. He pulled his car up in the neighbor's yard and was asking how to get to town. And his family differed. They thought it was dementia, but he went from being moderately forgetful one day to not knowing anything. He was a nice guy. He always had a lot of stories to tell you. He'd tell you about how he came up from Kentucky during the Great Depression in a Model T Ford and settled here in Illinois. His family wanted to sell his property very quickly at a very attractive price. And we were the ones who came up with I was the one, I guess I should say, although my family was in on this too, I was the one who came up with the financing first, and so the property ended up in my hands, which was kind of what we wanted. We wanted to own out to the edge of our block. As far as the Roach Palace goes, the origin of the name actually comes from Consumer Reports' Zillions magazine. That used to be a magazine that the Consumer Reports people published. And I think the goal of that magazine was actually to completely poison kids against advertising. But one of the things that they did is they had a group of kids that reviewed some restaurants, and I believe that one of them reviewed the International House of Pancakes. I've never been to an International House of Pancakes, so I don't know what it's like. But this kid seemed, if I'm remembering things right, this kid thought it was okay, and then closed in a humorous fashion by saying, "Stay tuned next week when we review the Roach Palace." And then he went on to say that he was just kidding, of course. He hoped. I thought the name was funny. I'd used it in times past, and so when I realized that the house that I had purchased was really kind of a dump, the name ended up sticking to it. My repair knowledge and stuff like that, I would say that I'm probably pretty far from being an expert on all things electronic. Given enough time to understand a circuit or to look at a schematic or something, I can figure out what's going on. I've had a lifelong love of electronics, mechanical objects, electrical things, basically from the get-go. One of my preschool teachers, I had occasion to meet one of them many years later, many years down the road, and she always said that one of the things that I was doing in class was I would go back to the blackboard and I would actually outline these electrical circuits and things like that. And I have no idea what any of these diagrams look like. I can't imagine they were very sensible, being that I was preschool age, but one never knows. And that whole thing has kind of stuck with me. I have basically taught myself by reading books and attending a few classes at the School of Hard Knocks. Oh, and I think that's pretty much all there is to say about that so far. One of the things that I did learn in school, also in preschool, I was sitting there in a huddle with a bunch of other students, listening to the teacher read a story, and I wouldn't leave the cord on this old school-style portable turntable alone. I was sitting there twirling it, and all of a sudden this big orange flash comes out of the wall, and, I got to learn a lot about electricity that day. Fortunately, the number of incidents I've had like that have been very limited because they can also prove fatal, which is never fun. Anyway, the people who asked about my repair knowledge were YouTube users Fuzzy2K and Pacific Coast. Now, if you asked about some of these things and I overlooked your question, I overlooked giving you credit, I'm very sorry about that. It's not my intention to overlook anyone who was kind enough to submit a question. And I do really appreciate the fact that everybody submitted questions, and I appreciate even more the fact that most of them were politely worded and suitable for answering in front of general audiences. So thank you so far, and stay tuned where I'm going to answer some more questions.